All right, welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Dawn Cooper. I'm Assistant Vice Chancellor of College Access Initiatives at the University System of Georgia, and I am the Gear Up Georgia State Project Director. And I want to thank you all for joining us for our Careers in Architecture webinar. I'm super excited, and I see our Director of Implementation is excited as well with her architecture gifts over there in the chat. So as you all know, Gear Up Georgia, we're a statewide initiative here in Georgia, and our goals are to make sure that our students have everything that they need to successfully enroll into college and complete college and be able to be prepared for the career of their choice that's going to help them pursue their passion, their interests. And so this webinar is what we do every Tuesday at 6 p.m. in different career fields to really expose them to different types of careers and give them the opportunity to speak with those individuals who are in the industry and can give them a firsthand experience of not only how to prepare for that career, but also what it's like to be involved on a day-to-day basis and for them to be able to ask questions as well. So we hope to get all of those goals accomplished. I want to remind all of our Gear Up students, if you're on the call, please make sure that you type your name, your school, and your district in the chat. That also goes for any Gear Up parents that are there as well. Your name, your child's school, and your child's district in the chat. We want to know who's here because we love knowing who's here. But we also have door prizes at the end for our Gear Up students. And the only way Gear Up students are eligible for that door prize is to type their information into the chat. So I am now going to turn it over to our facilitator of the panel this evening. She's one of our program coordinators for Gear Up Georgia, and her name is Ms. Dawn Harrison. So Dawn, I will turn it over to you, twin, as you all can see the family resemblance between Dawn and Dawn. So go ahead, Dawn, take it away.
So thank you, my twin. I appreciate that. My name is Dawn Harrison. I am the local program coordinator for Gear Up Georgia at Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College. And I service Thomas County Schools, and I have seniors this year, so go class of 2021. And I just want to thank the panelists for being here tonight. We just are just so fortunate to have you guys here supporting our students. And we have a couple of questions that we want to ask you guys. And we're going to follow the same order when it comes to answering. So I'll ask a question. Mr. Jefferson, you'll be number 1. Ms. Hardage, you'll be number 2. Mr. Coleman, number 3. And Mr. Pittman, number 4, okay? And so let's just dive right into it. I'm excited to get into our questions. And our first one is an intro question. And it is, what is your name? Where are you from originally? And we would like to hear about your high school, the district, and state. Where did you attend post-secondary? We would like to know about your institution. And what was your major? And so, Mr. Jefferson, would you like to start us off?
Sure. So my full name, hi everyone. My name is Elijah Jefferson. Born originally in New York, but raised in Columbia, South Carolina. I went to high school in South Carolina, Ridgeview High School. In Columbia, I don't remember the district. Was it Richland County 2? I can't remember. After high school, I went to Tuskegee University. I went to Tuskegee, Alabama, from 2014 till 2019. So I actually graduated last year. And was that everything?
What was your major?
Major, yes, major. My major was architecture. Sorry, I apologize about that. Yes, my major was architecture.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Jefferson. Ms. Hardage?
Yes, hi, I'm Lisa Hardage. I was born in Atlanta, and I went to high school at Etowah High School in Woodstock in Cherokee County. It's about 30 miles north of Atlanta. And I went to Georgia Tech undergrad, and they call it a Bachelor of Science, but it's really architecture. Matter of fact, I see one of my professors, Pete Pittman, is on the call, so that's a nice surprise.
Hello, Lisa.
So after Tech, I worked for 3 years, and then I went to graduate school at Clemson in Clemson, South Carolina. and my major was Master of Architecture there.
Thank you, Ms. Hardage. Mr. Coleman?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shedrick Coleman. I'm originally from Savannah, Georgia. I attended high school at Alfred Eli Beach High School here in Chatham County. I attended Cornell University studying for the Bachelor of Architecture. And that was in 1981 that I graduated and left Cornell in 86. So those were my years of architecture school.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Mr. Pittman?
And I'm Peter Pittman. I graduated from a high school that is no longer in existence. It's called North Fulton High School. It is now the International School in Buckhead. So I was there very early on before it was closed. I went to college and graduate school at Georgia Tech and graduated with a master's degree from Georgia Tech and traveled a few years before starting practice in architecture and then finally into academia.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman. Question number 2, where are you currently working right now? Mr. Jefferson?
Yes, ma'am. So currently I'm working in Chicago, Illinois. I was hired by a firm known as SCB, Solomon Courtwell Waynes. They were the first firm to hire me straight out of college. So I've been with them for about a year and a few months now.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Ms. Hardage?
Yeah, hi, I work for a small firm called Good Van Slyke Architecture, and they're a minority-owned firm. They're right near the King Center, and I've been there about 2 years.
Thank you, Ms. Hardage. Mr. Coleman?
Good evening again. I work for myself. I have a firm called Shed Architecture, of which I'm the principal, and I have been the principal of this firm now for the last 10 years.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Mr. Pittman, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Let's see, where shall I start? I'm currently an associate professor at Kennesaw State University. I taught, I guess I started my professional career as an intern architect with Stevens and Wilkinson long time ago, and moved through the ranks there before I went back to Georgia Tech to teach, which I taught there for about 10 years. And then I chaired the interiors program at Auburn, then came back to Atlanta as my sons were growing up and moved back to Atlanta and practiced a bit longer, and then finally moved to Kennesaw State University and been there for the last 10 years.
Wow, that's a long career. Congratulations. Question number 3, what made you choose your major, decide to pursue a career in this field, and choose this particular position? So basically, tell us about your journey. Mr. Jefferson.
So my journey was actually a pretty interesting one. For a long time, I always knew that architecture was going to be the path I was going to take. I used to think it was called agriculture when I was younger, and then I quickly learned the difference between the two. But yeah, before high school, even before middle school, I was like, I want to make and do things with buildings, and like I was always building things with my hands, different things like that. And then as I got older, I learned more, got exposed to more, went to school, studied it for 5 years, and I'm happy to say that now I work. And to say what I did, why I chose the position I did, it was entry level. But the firm that I'm working with, they just have a wide variety of different projects and different experiences that I can be exposed to. So I'm able to learn a lot more even now being out of school and done with undergrad.
That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I'm into it logged.
Ms. Hardage?
Yes, hi. My story sounds a little convoluted, but I'll get to the end if I can. when I was a little kid, my parents were always doing projects, like big projects, like building fountains or building sheds or taking down walls in the house and stuff. And they were also both very artistic. So I kind of had that background. And then our school bus took this route through this kind of sad part of town. And I would see those houses and trailers and stuff and think, gosh, you know, there might be a way to help make those people's lives better. And so it kind of built on that. And then my stepdad was a residential contractor. So all those things, like my interest in art and wanting to make people's lives better, kind of led me to the profession. So I think I decided pretty early it was either that or I thought teaching second grade might be fun. And so I worked for a couple of big firms, Perkins and Will, and then AECOM, and now I'm at a small firm. And there's definitely, especially when you're starting out, you do a lot of drawing and it seems kind of repetitive, but you learn a lot. I think I like being at a small firm now because you get to do a little bit of everything. And I think we'll get into that a little more later, but you get to work, you get to meet the client, and then you also get to go out and see the project being built, which to me, that's really important when you're learning and just for your satisfaction to see what you drew and how it really looks in real life. It's always smaller.
That sounds very interesting. Honestly, very interesting. Mr. Coleman?
My journey as an architect started with an interest in drawing when I was younger. And when I entered high school, I took a drafting class. And in that drafting class, I basically fell in love with the opportunity to say, hey, this is something I could do that doesn't seem like it's work, really, and worked along with my belief in being creative. So by the time I was a junior in high school, I had a job in a local architectural firm, which cemented my love for the profession. And upon leaving Cornell, I was able to work for various developers and contractors, sort of honing my craft and understanding construction before I joined a local firm, leading up to my registration at the age of 30 and joining Georgia Southern University as a university architect there for 5 years, and leaving there, becoming a partner in another firm for 10 years and leading to my current ownership of my own firm here for the last 10. So it's been 27 years of practice as an architect for me at this time, and I've loved every minute of it.
Well, it's great to love your job, isn't it?
Yes, it definitely is.
And Mr. Pittman.
My journey is actually quite maybe different. I'm not quite sure how I found my way to architecture, except to recall the years that I played with my sister as we took, I guess, minimal amounts of toys to cut out paper dolls out of Sears Roebuck catalogs and books to build interior spaces. And as I grew older, I decided at some point in those years that I told my parents that I would build them a house. And I think it struck a chord at that point in time. And I spent my adolescent years going through elementary school, high school, and then I got ready to go to college, and I still didn't quite know what I was going to do. And a friend of mine gave me a book when I graduated from high school, and it was a book on Frank Lloyd Wright. And I read it, I looked at it, and I reflected a bit, and I said, I'm going to be just like him. And I think that was the culminating point of why I decided to apply to go to architecture school. Although I was asked several times to study engineering, I was offered scholarships to go to textile engineering at the time to go to Georgia Tech, but I made perhaps an interesting decision to go into architecture instead of textile engineering as a part of it. So it was a long journey, though.
I remember Sears and Roebuck bulk catalogs. Is that how you said it? I remember those. Dawn said she did. Cheryl too. I think we all remember the big thick catalog.
Right.
Absolutely. What's a typical day like on your job, Mr. Jefferson?
So for me, I'm a entry level. I'm a design technical one. So a typical day with my job is basically I take on any tasks that my project manager or anyone else more senior on the projects will ask me to do. So sometimes that's going through and organizing pictures. Sometimes that's going through and picking up red lines and different mistakes on different projects. Sometimes that's just making sure all of our keynotes are just in order, but just basically anything that has to be done, and more importantly, anything that no one else wants to do. That's basically my day-to-day kind of exercise. But you get to learn a lot from just the many different kind of tasks that you get and the many different drawings that you actually end up getting to see. So I would say it definitely has a lot of benefit to it.
Thank
I
you.
have a question for Mr. Jefferson, Dawn.
Okay,
So
go right ahead.
you mentioned red line. Can you explain what that is? You mentioned you were doing something with red line.
Yes. So typically, basically, as far as I understand, we'll have a lot of drawings that we do and a lot of drawings that nothing is ever done or complete the first time. Many times there'll be drawings that I'll be asked to edit or make modifications on that will come back with a lot of different marks on them. And those are typically my red lines. So someone takes a red pen, goes through, marks out, delete this, move this here. This is spelled incorrectly. Why is this still sitting here? I asked you to take care of that 3 hours ago. So just that kind of thing. But it's basically a check and balance of, okay, this is what was done. This is what still needs to be improved. And there's never a point where you're done. There's always going to be something that comes back to be like, okay, do this a little bit better, make this neater. Hey, we need to change that here. I hope that wasn't too long of an answer.
No,
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Ms. Hardage.
I did a lot of, like Elijah was saying, especially, or Mr. Jefferson, especially when I was first starting out, I did a lot of red lines or looking at shop drawings, which are after the architecture and engineering team have prepared their package, the contractor who's going to build it will submit, he or she will submit a package of all the elevator requirements, and you need to go through and review that and make sure it meets what you've drawn and put in your specified. So I did a lot of shop drawings too. Another thing, so that's kind of earlier on. I did more of that. Now I'm more managing, but I still will draw some things, like figure out how. I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, I know I'm kind of I'm thinking it through. First thing is, when you're talking to the owner, it's good to figure out how they work. Like if you ask them what size office they need, they're not going to know. But if you listen to how they work and how their day goes, that helps you think of what they might need. So you can kind of take that room by room and turn that into a whole building. So one is talking to the client. The other is coordinating with the engineers. How much heat does the room need? How much lights? Where do the light switches need to be? How do the plumbing fixtures work? Are you using recycled materials? All those kind of things come together. And then you need to document it all. So you'll have drawings and written specifications that the owner, I know I'm kind of going all over the place, sorry. So usually all the engineers and stuff work under the architect. So the architect's the lead. So you coordinate it all. When it's finished, get the owner to review it, and then get the contractor to price it. And then usually you'll stay on while it's being built. So it's a little bit of everything, which I didn't think about this when I chose the profession, but I really do feel like I learn something every day.
Good answer. Good answer.
Well, sorry, it was kind of rambling.
I know, that's fine. We learn from rambling. Mr. Coleman.
I will have to piggyback on the prior answer just as the basis of a little bit of everything, but also as a principal, I am in charge of really all the client contact, and I do basically most of the designing for my firm as well. So my days are filled with whatever comes up based in the leadership role, which means sometimes I'm designing, sometimes I'm producing, sometimes I'm out in the field taking care of an issue that may come up, or having a meeting for potential work. There's also a volunteer side of my practice where I've been involved in doing things with the community, such as serving on planning boards and things of that nature. So it's very diverse as far as what we do from day to day based on the need. But the basic thing that I enjoy the most is designing my projects and bringing them to realization based on my client needs.
Awesome answer. Thank you. Mr. Pittman?
Well, since I'm actually now in academia, I can say that most of the things that I think all three other participants suggested are things that I have done or over the past years in my career. So it's ranged in all different types of projects and all different types of scales of projects. Currently, though, as an educator, what I do on a daily basis is very similar to what your current teachers do in high school. Right? We try to manage your best laid plans for being educated, and that's what we do in college. We try to instill and foster good learning habits, instill good creative habits to design, to learn something about architecture. So as a studio critic, I teach studios at at Kennesaw. I'm also teach an environmental technology class as an integral part of the curriculum. I also teach a furniture class that I've built over the years for teaching, and I'm also the we'll call it the curriculum leader for the department. In other words, I make sure that all incoming students are at least prepared to meet the requirements and the rigor of our program and our curriculum. So I try to manage that to make sure that students progress through the curriculum and graduate, which is one of our main goals.
Great answer,
Dawn,
Mr.
I have
Pittman.
a question for Mr. Pittman.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Pittman, how much of your experience in the architecture field as a practicing architect informs what you do or share with your students? So how much of that plays into what you teach in class as opposed to maybe some of the literature or the books or resources that you use when you're teaching?
I'll use a little metaphor to answer your question in a different way, and then I'll try to follow up with it. When I graduated from Georgia Tech, I went to work immediately after graduation, and in a short period of time, Georgia Tech called me up one day and said, "Are you interested in coming back to teach at Georgia Tech?" And I said, I got maybe not. I had a good job, a good position, and so I thought twice about maybe wanting to go back to teach. And I said the first time no, and then they called back a few months later and said, "Would you be interested in coming to teach at Georgia Tech?" So I got all excited, and I went to my project manager at Stevens & Wilkinson, who became a really strong mentor of mine. And he said, "What do you know about architecture?" And I said, "Well, I know a lot." And he said, "What are you going to teach your students when you go back to teach?" And I said, "I'm going to teach them everything that I know." And he said, "There's your problem. You don't know anything about architecture, so stay here for a few years, learn a little bit about architecture, and then I'll give you my blessings to go back to teach." That lived with me for a long time. And so I think to answer your question, it has to do more with what I do and how I do in my teaching. For a long time, I bridged my teaching and education with when I was teaching at Georgia Tech in a parallel universe. I taught and I practiced at the same time. It basically meant that I worked 120 hours a week, if that's possible. But I spent a lot of time working and practicing in both realms. As I got older, I started to dedicate and wean myself away from practicing, but I took all of what I learned as a practitioner and applied it to what I do in my education. So I use both still. I continue to learn as much as I can. My students force me to learn, to be in front of what they're doing because they're learning much faster than I. So yeah, it's important to be aware of what's going on in the profession. It's important to be engaged in the profession. I always see architecture as three components. There's a practice, there's a discipline, and then there's a profession. I sort of dabble in all three of those components, not as much as a professional anymore, but I am fully engaged in the practice of architecture and its discipline in education.
Thank you, Mr. Pitt.
We have
There
a
is-
question in the chat from a student, Dawn.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm sorry I can't see her name. Maybe Jonesy Foster?
Sandra
she's-
Henderson.
Okay, Sandra Henderson. Is that, I'm a student and I was wondering, is that her question?
Yes.
Okay. She basically says, I'm a student and I was wondering, does the colleges look at our math courses, the grades? And she says that she's asking this because she's never been necessarily good at math, but this career choice interests her. She's worried it would jeopardize her later on in college, as in chances of getting in and succeeding. What should she do?
Elijah, you want to answer it or shall I answer it?
I can give an answer from a student perspective. I was not by any means a math genius. I was not the best in high school. I will say the best advice I can give you for now is keep doing what you can, keep trying your best, but also, don't be afraid to go above and beyond. You know what I'm saying? Seek the tutoring that you might need, watch the videos. Being good, gifted in math, what you see, whether you're the top student, whether you're the student who's struggling, but you're always trying to make the grade, that will not stop you from being successful in architecture. I can name so many professors who have stories of failing math classes, failing physics classes, failing things over and over again, but they have accomplished careers in architecture, and that is because they kept trying, they kept pushing forward. So no, I don't think that it will ever stop you from being successful in this career field. And plus, we all use calculators.
I will follow up with that as a way. Admission requirements around the country are all totally different. And so this is true for all of you guys who are interested in applying to university, regardless of where there is architecture or any other discipline. The varying universities are going to demand varying, we'll say, high school coursework in preparation for admission requirements. So that's going to vary. Some universities are heavily laden on grade point averages from high school. Some are laden on your AP courses or your IB courses. Some are very heavily weighted on the courses in, we'll say, STEM courses, your math and your sciences. I would recommend that anytime you are preparing yourself and putting your work together or your essays and things for admission is to look at the universities, look at the programs, and make sure that each one of the programs that you're looking at meets at least your aspirations so that you don't get deflated in the process, because they're all going to be different. And so I don't think math is a big issue. However, just so that you understand, Kennesaw State, as a part of your admission requirements, is going to require math in architecture. We have a 5-year professional degree in architecture. Some universities will allow you to have an admission using trigonometry or pre-calculus as an integral part. Some universities, Georgia Tech on the other hand, most likely you're going to have calculus before. So your calculus A, B, and BC are going to be very, very important. However, once you get into the program here, you're going to have to take physics. You won't have a choice. And our physics, even though we call it cookbook physics, it still is based in math. It's based in a pre-calculus trigonometry subtext. So you're going to have some level of competency in mathematics, algebra, college algebra as an integral part.
And if I could add on to that, when I went to Etowah High School, they didn't have calculus. And when I got to Tech, there I was trying to take calculus and adjust to be in an architecture program. And one suggestion would be if you have an opportunity to do a dual enrollment when you're a senior and take a couple of college classes, whether they end up being calculus or just some other class. So when you get into an architecture program, you have a little bit of breathing room. I would recommend that. And the other thing I wanted to say about when you're in high school is take some art classes or public speaking or business classes. You want to be well-rounded because part of being in architecture school is presenting your ideas just like it is in the profession. And I think things may have changed since I was in school, but we didn't get a lot of instruction on how a business works. And knowing a little bit about that helps you too when you're starting out and later on.
Good point.
Mr.
I
Coleman,
definitely agree.
did you answer or would you like to answer?
I think that they've answered it pretty well, but I also agree that it depends on the school that you're planning to attend, which Mr. Pittman referenced, that each school has different requirements, and based on the philosophy of the design school, the importance of math plays out as well. So just want to add that too.
Thank you very much. And Sandra, if you're a Gear Up Georgia student, you have freetutor.com. So you need to get with your coordinator if you're a Gear Up Georgia student and let them help you out with free tutoring. Okay? And so at this time, I just want to remind all of the Gear Up Georgia students to please type your full name, your school, and your district in the chat. That is the only way that you can qualify for our door prize at the end, and you have to stay with us. You have to be present to win. So don't leave us, okay? And also, are there any more questions from parents, students, or staff for our panelists? This is your time to shine, future architects. Come on. Okay, going once, going twice. Back to the lady in black and white. I have some more questions for you guys. So, please elaborate on the importance of work ethic, communications, building relationships, and other soft skills, both in academic preparation and professionally. What role did any of these soft skills play in your success? Soft skills seems to be very important these days, so I'm looking forward to hearing your answer. Mr. Jefferson.
Yes, ma'am. So I would have to say, I think above all, the two soft skills that helped not only progress me through college academically, but then also helped me get to the position where I am today would be my work ethic and my communication skills. Work ethic because, as I said before, not just with math, I was not the best student in the beginning of my college career. Tests were hard. I was in a new state. A lot of things happened. So that reflected a lot on my grades early on. However, after that long summer conversation with mom and dad and a refocused mind, more dedication towards, okay, I want to be here. This is what I said I want to do. I want to do whatever it's going to take for me to be successful. I worked hard at it. And through communication, because we had different school fairs, career fairs, People ask to see your resumes, know your grades, know your test scores, different things like that. But through showing my hard work, through showing them that this may have happened at this point in time. However, this is where I am now. I'm very serious about what I am doing now. You can see from, and then I would have a list of things. And I would love to stay in contact with you. I would love, if I can't get so-and-so position or so-and-so job right now, can we stay connected? Can I learn from you? Can we talk more? Can I ask you questions? And those kinds of things and relationships actually helped me to get 2 internships while I was in school. One being in Atlanta, Georgia, and eventually, my current position at the job that I have now. So I would say those were the most pivotal in making sure that I could not only pursue the career that I wanted to, but actually be successful in it as well. And then the biggest thing, especially with communication, not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to approach people and say, hey, I need help with this. I don't know what this is. What do you think about this? And because I did those things, I was able to get to where I am now. But you definitely have to work hard.
Great answer. Ms. Hardage? Ms. Hardage, you're muted if you're speaking.
Sorry, I'm on mute. I think that's great that you reached out to people like that. That's great advice. I'm a little more of an introvert, especially when I first started at Tech. The part of the fun of being in architecture school is the camaraderie. You spend so much time together and you learn a lot more from each other, and you hear other people present their ideas and you get more confidence in your ideas. So even if you struggle, which I struggled, and also I worked all the way through school, so I maybe wasn't the typical student, but if you have a passion for it, hang in there. I think Elijah's right too about, I hope you don't mind me calling Elijah's, the work ethic is very important, especially when you get out of school or you get that summer job. Whatever they ask you to do, you're going to learn something from it. Like my first job, my first task was to go through a whole room full of old rolled up drawings, record what they were, and send them off to what they call debt filing, because architects have to keep drawings for 7 years after a building's finished, depending on your state. And people were coming by and patting me on the back because I was all dusty and tired. But the coolest thing was I saw drawings that the original partners had drawn by hand, like 20 years ago. So even that task of rolling up old drawings, you can learn something. Or they send you on an errand to run something down to the contractor. You might meet someone that you come across later. So I think, be a hard worker and be open to things is a way to make a success of it.
Great answer, Ms. Hardage. Mr. Coleman?
Yes, for me, I find that one of the best skills that I've been able to do, being a very avid reader, is learning to process information in a way that you're able to then disseminate it and use to your advantage, and to be well read so you can communicate with the varying clients that you may come across and be able to talk to them on their level with some sort of knowledge, because you're not just focused on being an architect, that you're worldly in what you're able to do, and to have some skills to write and do things of that nature. I found that those skills have enabled me to serve on boards all around the nation, including as a national board member of the American Planning Association, where 7 years into it, was their president run for it. While I wasn't successful in winning, just the fact that as an architect, I was asked to lead a planning body came from the fact that I had a very diverse way of looking at things, was a listener, and wanted to always believe that there was a way to improve things and not rest on my laurels. So I think that, just being able to take information, work hard, because I agree the work ethic is a part of what you do. You can't put 8 hours into this job and think you're going to be successful, without a doubt. So, and you basically will build those people skills and relationships over that time frame. And they've been really beneficial to me over my years of practice, and have created a lot of great friendships in the process.
Great answer, Mr. Coleman. I like that, talking on their level. That's great. Mr. Pittman?
I think all of those comments are great, and I think they are point on. I think in architecture, though, there's some skills that are not necessarily applicable to many of the other disciplines, and one of those skills that I always have suggested to my students is the ability to see and to be curious. I don't think you can be a really good architect without being curious and having curiosity, because the world we live in is a world of all things. And one of the great things about architecture is it's about all things. It's about law, it's about business, it's about society, it's about religion, it's about tradition. It's about all of those things that exist around us, and we have to be willing to be open enough to be curious about everything. And I think if there's one thing that I always suggested even to my own children is that to always be curious, to always look for the things that are not obvious and try to discover the things that have potential. And to me, that's part of the soul of architecture, and understanding how it can become something greater than what we see or understand in the environment. So be curious, always be curious, and don't be afraid to maybe another thing, don't be afraid to step out on the edge and ask a different kind of question. Sometimes we can be too cautious for the wrong reasons. So don't be afraid to just step out on the edge and venture into the unknown a bit, right?
Great advice, Mr. Pittman. And it looks like some students are taking that advice. One of the questions in the chat, what are the top architecture schools in the country?
Bad question.
That question.
Oh, you know what my answer is going to be, right?
I just want to say I think we came in at number 4 this year for Tuskegee University, 4 or 5. I can't remember. I know I read it somewhere recently, but just saying we're up there.
Mr. Pittman, would you like to chime in?
Sure. I'm going to answer this question in the same way that I answered, similar to one of the others. They're all different programs all around the country, all around the world, and they're all, although the same, they're distinctively different. Some are very similar. I always, once again, encourage students to do a little research, do your due diligence to look at the programs, look at the faculty, and then make decisions based off of a number of things. Where do you want to live for 4 years of your life? Which city, which part of the country, which part of the world? What are the financial constraints that are going to be there when you apply to go, right? Economically, socially, culturally, all those things that goes with it. And then look at the academics itself. Look at the universities, look at the kind of work that the students are being produced at those schools. And then you make those decisions. I don't believe much in, I guess, saying that one school is better than the other. I think the other thing, the bottom line is as long as the school is accredited and accredited by the NAB accrediting board, which is the validation that you are getting a good education, hopefully, you're going to be okay. I've talked to a lot of students over the years, and lots of students have made decisions for all different reasons. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's because they want to stay close to mom and dad, sometimes they didn't get accepted and then they went to someplace else, and then sometimes they went and got accepted and then they went. Don't ever make a decision about what the ratings are, it seems to me. Filter through and figure out where and I don't like this word, where's the best fit for you to learn about architecture, and know what the programs and the curriculums are to get you the best education that you want to achieve the goals that you have, right?
This is Shedrick Coleman. I'd like to add something behind that, if possible.
Yes, sir, Mr. Coleman, go right ahead.
I agree with Mr. Pittman about the schools, but for me, I always tell former employees or anyone looking into the profession that the school may open a door for you, but it's what you do with it once you're in that door that makes more difference in your success than anything. And I think that's in any discipline that you go into, that, you know, the educational basis gets you started, but what you put into it time-wise to advance yourself in your career and to learn to be a master of your art go much farther than where you started from, because many people go to great schools and never achieve much greatness. So it's all about our individual efforts that really are the key to our success.
That's great advice, Mr. Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Hardage, would you like to add? And you're muted if you're trying.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We have a new kitten and he's a nut, or she's a nut. No, I don't have anything to add right now. Now, I was reading the question about what advice do you have when looking for internships? So I was thinking about that.
Yes. Would you like to tackle that one?
I
Would you like
don't
me to read?
know exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. It's what advice do you have when looking for internships in architecture? What are some common requirements for internships for college students? Does anyone would like to tackle that question?
I can touch on that one. I would say, what was the first question? What advice would you have when looking for internships?
Right.
Definitely be persistent. Be persistent, because sometimes just coming from a student that just graduated, my perspective, it'll seem like they want you to have a lot more experience or a lot more of a background than you're actually able to get provided in school. You know, some are looking just from kind of like a company production standpoint. Some are just looking from, hey, we just want to know, what can you do? Do you know this? It depends on the season, but be persistent. And also, it's good to communicate with people who are in those positions to know what experience that you're actually going to get. One of my only and best internship experiences that I had was with the National Park Service in Atlanta, Georgia. I worked on the Martin Luther King National Historic Park. We were doing historic structures reports, so a lot of pictures, a lot of hand drawings in the fields, a lot of dusty attics, and very uncomfortable crawl spaces. But what they were looking for in that case, they were looking for someone who wanted to learn, for one, who would be willing to help out on their projects, who wasn't afraid to get their hands dirty, and most importantly, who was serious about it. Because in that field, they wanted to see, okay, now that you've interned, you want to come back and continue this tradition of historic preservation. So, what was the second question?
Sorry, I was on mute that time. What are some common requirements for internships for college students?
I would say basic requirements. I would say knowledge in basic architecture programs. So what's popular in the field right now is AutoCAD and Revit. Basically, you want to have a resume put together. You also want to have, I forgot who mentioned it earlier, but be pretty well-rounded as well. So some public speaking here and there, some volunteer services here and there, just to show that you're able to communicate, you're able to present, and most importantly, just like I said, be willing to learn. Like, a lot of places are really looking for people who are serious about it, who want to learn. Don't get discouraged if that person may turn you down that year because you're too young or you don't have enough experience. Keep in communication with them, keep in contact with them, because 9 times out of 10, they know someone who can use someone of your level of experience. Like I said, communication, work ethic, and persistence is how I got to where I was. So where many people may have told me no, they knew someone else who would say yes. And that's how I was able to get the opportunities that I did have. But
Yeah, I would add on
know the
that.
basic.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, know the basic programs, know what's popular right now, because why it's definitely gonna be important for you all being younger. The field is evolving and changing along with the technology. So it's a lot easier to pick up students who know these things and are learning them in school versus some of the people that they're training at the firm to get out of the typical older habits. And then, okay, now we're going to be on this new system. If you can know certain things by like your first or second year in the summer, they're going to be looking at you and say, yeah, come down for an internship. We need some help on some projects. I promise you, they want the next generation because of just where the technology is going.
I'd like to just piggyback on an idea or notion. The wonderful thing about architecture is that we're educating, I hope, broader minds for being in the environment. And so the question had to do with how you would apply, maybe as a college student looking for an internship. I think you limit yourself when you only look into architecture, right? The great things about architecture is that there are other discipline fields that you can use your background in education to get a job or to be engaged in something similar or parallel to architecture. So I think there's two things to perhaps appreciate. One is be prepared, one. Two is to build the strongest body of work that you can build while you're in school. And third is to build the strongest levels of skills. You can parlay those skills into a number of different venues. You don't have to focus specifically in an architectural firm. There are other fields and other disciplines that use your profession, your education as an architect. So I encourage you to broaden the scope and the horizon beyond just looking for positions in architecture or in we'll say the global field of architecture. Think about the discipline and how you use that discipline as an integral way of expanding opportunities.
Great advice. Ms. Hardage, did you want to add?
Actually, I just typed it in the chat. Like I was saying, I've been at my job for 2 years. And before that, I was 6 years, but I noticed a lot more employers want people that have Photoshop skills, Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator. So if your school doesn't have opportunity to learn Revit or AutoCAD, it'd be great if you had those skills. That would help with your internship pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely true.
Mr. Coleman, did I hear a
Well, I agree with a lot of that. And being the fact that I've been a principal for 20 years, I've been someone who's had to select persons for internships. And I will concur with basically all those things. But I'm also looking for persons who are fully aware of what their limitations are as well. That they don't overpromise what they can do, so that I can look at what you really can bring into the office and what I can do to help you as an intern to advance yourself in your career as well. So that's something that I think that needs to be taught to. Sometimes you need to be a little humble in what you can do so that someone can offer you what they can to help you with your career as well. Because as an intern, there's certain expectations I'm going to have from you anyway. But at the same time, I want to see that you're a go-getter, that you have some level of skills that could benefit the firm. But really, our job with the intern is to help you out, from that standpoint as well. So it's a concurrent opportunity for you to grow and for us to grow with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's great advice. For the sake of time, guys, we're going to jump down to the last question. If you could just briefly, what word of advice would you have for a student interested in the field? You guys have offered such great advice all along, but I would just love to hear briefly just a little bit more.
What advice would I offer to a student interested in the field?
Yes.
I think we touched on so much. One interesting take I had, and I just say this from my own personal experience. For one, be willing to sacrifice. What I mean by sacrifice is if there are things that you struggle with, if there are things that are hard for you, that are difficult, be willing to go that extra mile. Be willing to spend those extra hours maybe working on something. And it doesn't just apply to architecture, it can apply to anything if you want to be successful. Be willing to seek out that extra help. Be willing to go that extra mile, go to the tutoring once, twice, 3 times a week. Because those things right there are definitely going to help you get to where you want to be. And sometimes it may not always happen immediately or right away. It'll definitely be frustrating. It'll be heartbreaking at times. But be willing to sacrifice, put that work in, continue to build on it. And I promise you, are going to see the fruits of your labor. And
Great
also,
answer.
I think Mr. Pittman, I want to say. I'm sorry if I got your last name incorrect, but
It's okay. Right.
like you said, don't be afraid to walk over to the edge. Don't be afraid to ask that question that no one else is willing to ask. Don't be afraid to take a risk. Don't be afraid to see different opportunities or advantages in places no one else is finding them, because in this field, that is one of the things that's going to help you move forward and be successful and be able to get into different opportunities.
Thank you, Elijah. Ms. Hardage, brief advice for us?
Yes, I would say try to get some sort of internship or ask people to lunch or visit offices as soon as you can, because you want to get an idea that that's what you want to do before you get too far along in school. I had a friend that her parents would only pay for school if she went straight from undergrad through grad school. So she'd gone through 6 years of school and never worked in an office. And I'm like, gosh, I hope she likes it. But to talk about what other people have said, if they don't have an internship, just ask if they can show you around their office. I mean, I've had some people call and ask me that. Or you could reach out to the local AIA chapter, which stands for American Institute of Architects, or you could follow them on Facebook or Instagram and stuff. They might post internships. Just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and take some risk like other people have said. And also, when you're in school, it seems like design is the most emphasized, and certainly that's important. When you get a job, you realize there are lots of different types of architects. Like Mr. Pittman was saying, it takes a lot of different types of people to get a project out and to make a firm successful. So again, the well-roundedness is good.
Thank you. And Mr. Coleman, brief advice?
Yes, my advice would be to learn how to communicate your decision process. I think that, especially coming from out of high school and moving into architecture school, to be able to explain why you made the decision will be very beneficial to explaining, how you arrived at a solution on a problem. And that even goes beyond, school. My employees, I always want to understand why they did something so that I can understand how to correct maybe the mistake that was made, but to tell me you don't know is really not what you want to hear. So basically just be able to understand why you arrived at a decision and how to communicate that to the person who's asking questions about it.
Mr. Pittman, brief advice.
Yes, advice. All of you, or many of you, I guess, are getting ready and preparing for college. I encourage you to be vigilant and look at all of your opportunities. If you decide to make a decision to come to architecture school or to go to architecture school, understand it as a curriculum that's totally different than all of the other programs. It's one of those programs where you have to start at the beginning, and there's no wiggle room to opt out and hop back in and opt out and hop back in. So when you make that decision, be aware of its consequences one way or the other. As a way of saying that in a kind of global way is do a little study in making your decisions before you make your final decision to where you go to school, what you want to study, and how you want to study, whatever that discipline may be.
Great advice. Thank you guys so much. This has been so much fun for me personally. And Miss Dawn Cooper, I would love to hand this back over to you, twin.
Thank you, twin. So first, I just want to thank all of our amazing panelists. Can we get everybody to raise your hand and give them a hand or give them a clap in the chat or just however you would like to recognize them? This has been amazing advice, information, and just also known as jewels that they've been sharing with you all today. So I hope that you all are taking great notes and listening and are prepared to take advantage of this wonderful advice. This is an amazing opportunity that you had today. I hope you all understand how valuable it is. Panelists, I thank you for your time. I know that you all are busy with full-time jobs, but for you to take an extra hour of your evening and spend it with Gear Up Georgia, we really appreciate you. We thank you so much for doing so and continue to wish you all the best of luck in all of your future endeavors. If there's ever anything we can do for you at Gear Up Georgia, please let us know. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I want to thank all of our—
You're welcome. Our pleasure.
Thank you. I want to thank all of our students for coming on board this evening. I know that you guys are busy in homework and after-school activities, parents and staff as well. So we appreciate you sacrificing your time and investing in your future. We're very proud of you for doing that, for taking that extra step. I want to thank our program coordinators, our Gear Up program coordinators for coming on the call. We have Randallette Williams, Greg Kirk, Jasmine Grant, Dawn Harrison. I hope I didn't miss anybody else. We have our USG staff, Melissa Gattuso, Cheryl Thomas on here also. So thank you all for being here. Annette Bradley. I want to congratulate our door prize winner, for our student, who is Miss Sandra Henderson from Jonesboro High School in Clayton County. So congratulations, Sandra, for being here. You are getting a full book bag full of supplies with a TI-84 calculator that you'll hopefully be using on your upcoming ACT SAT test. And a reminder, I put a link in the chat for Gear Up Georgia resources, particularly the freetutor.com account that Dawn was mentioning earlier. So for any of our students who are struggling in any academic areas, you have a freetutor.com account, 24/7 on-demand virtual tutoring. So make sure you guys are taking advantage of that. And Sandra, please email us at gearupgeorgia@usg.edu with all of your information. And so we will be able to share your door prize with you. So again, thank you all, everyone, so much for being here. We appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great day and be safe.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.